After 22 years of silence, Keanu Reeves finally reveals the truth about Diane Keaton and the moment that changed everything. In a world obsessed with fitting in, there are some souls who are simply born to stand out. Diane Keaton was one of them. Long before Hollywood knew her name, before the hats, before the laughter that became her signature, she was just a girl from Los Angeles. Diane Hall, growing up in a family that looked ordinary on the outside but quietly brimmed with imagination. Her father, a civil engineer, believed in order and precision. Lines, angles, blueprints. Her mother, Dorothy Hall, believed in the art of the everyday. She designed clothes, took photographs, entered beauty contests, and encouraged her daughter to dream loudly. Between them, they gave Diane both structure and chaos, the two elements that would define her entire career. Born in 1946, Diane Hall came of age in an America caught between conformity and rebellion. The 1950s demanded perfection. Tidy hair, polite smiles, predictable futures, but Diane had something else stirring inside her, curiosity. While her classmates were learning how to impress, Diane was learning how to observe. She studied people, their gestures, their hesitations, their quiet contradictions. She once said, "I've always loved people who don't quite fit, maybe because I never really fit either." That sense of otherness didn't frighten her, it fascinated her. When she decided to become an actress, Diane did something small but symbolic. She changed her last name from Hall to Keaton, her mother's maiden name. It was an act of quiet rebellion, a way to say, "I'm creating myself." She moved to New York in the late 1960s, right into the heart of a cultural earthquake. The world was changing. Music, politics, fashion, everything was up for reinvention. The theater scene was wild and alive, and Diane wanted in. She studied at the neighborhood playhouse school of the theater, where she learned the craft of being present. Not just pretending, not just reciting, but truly being there. It was there that she learned a lesson that would shape her entire career. Acting isn't about pretending to be someone else. It's about revealing who you are in someone else's story. Her early auditions left casting directors both curious and confused. Casting directors couldn't quite place her. She was too tall, too funny, too awkward, too original. She wasn't trying to be sexy or sophisticated, she was just Diane. But then came Woody Allen's play Play It Again, Sam, 1969, and everything changed. She wasn't just a romantic lead, she was alive, unpredictable, utterly real. Allen saw it instantly. He once said, "She was like no one else, you couldn't put her in a box." Hollywood took longer to understand that. For years, women in film had been told to smile a certain way, dress a certain way, flirt a certain way. Diane didn't follow the script. And then in 1977, she tore it up entirely. When Annie Hall premiered, audiences didn't know what hit them. Diane Keaton wasn't just acting, she was being. The mismatched clothes weren't a costume, they were hers. The rambling dialogue wasn't scripted perfection, it was her rhythm, her heartbeat, her truth. In a time when leading ladies were expected to be glamorous, Keaton gave them something radical: authenticity. Her Annie was awkward, talkative, funny, insecure, and brilliant all at once. She made being real beautiful. Critics called it a revelation, feminists called it a breakthrough, the Academy called it Oscar-worthy. But Diane, she just called it fun. In interviews, she brushed off the idea that she had changed Hollywood. She'd laugh, tilt her head, and say, "I just wanted to be me. Isn't that what acting's about?" After Annie Hall, Hollywood wanted to replicate her, the Keaton type. But what they didn't realize was that Diane couldn't be replicated. Each new role became an experiment in truth. In Manhattan 1979, she was sharp and self-aware. In Reds 1981, opposite Warren Beatty, she became a political idealist, a woman torn between love and conviction. Her performance in Reds was fierce and intellectual, a statement that women could be emotional and intelligent, vulnerable and powerful. Through the 1980s and 1990s, Keaton redefined womanhood on-screen. She didn't chase youth or glamour, she chased truth. In a town that worshipped the image, she built a career on substance. Diane Keaton became a style icon not by design, but by instinct. The wide-brimmed hats, the turtlenecks, the men's suits. These weren't fashion statements, they were self-expression. In a 1982 interview, she said, "Clothes are a way of telling people who you are without saying a word." Her fashion wasn't about fitting trends, it was about freedom. Every tie, every oversized coat was a declaration: "I'm not here to impress, I'm here to exist." And through that existence, she created something revolutionary, a version of femininity that was complex, witty, self-defined. By the late 1990s, Diane had conquered acting, but she wasn't done creating. She moved behind the camera, directing films like Unstrung Heroes, 1995, and the documentary Heaven, 1987. A strange, poetic meditation on the afterlife that showed just how experimental her mind really was. She also became an acclaimed photographer and author. Her photo books captured the overlooked corners of Los Angeles. Old buildings, worn signs, quiet decay. She found beauty in imperfection, architecture in emotion. Diane Keaton didn't just play characters. She collected them in life and art alike. Her curiosity for people, her compassion for their flaws, her fascination with time, all of it fed into her creative spirit. In an industry obsessed with youth, Diane Keaton aged like an artist, curiously, playfully, unapologetically. She never hid behind surgery or silence. She let her age show, like a map of all the laughter, heartbreak, and wonder she had lived through. In her 50s, she starred in Something's Gotta Give, and audiences saw something rare, a romantic comedy that celebrated an older woman's sexuality, wit, and emotional depth. That film wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural statement. Keaton's performance proved that women could be powerful and desirable at any age, not by pretending to be young, but by embracing who they are. She once said, "I don't see aging as losing something, I see it as gaining everything I didn't know before." That philosophy became her greatest gift to Hollywood and to every woman watching. So what made Diane Keaton different? It wasn't just the laugh or the hats or the movies, it was her authenticity. She lived her life like a conversation, open, unpredictable, genuine. When she acted, you felt you were watching a real person, not a character. When she spoke, she didn't filter herself for approval. Her honesty could be awkward at times, even uncomfortable, but it was always real. In an era of image management, she refused to be managed. In a business built on illusion, she made truth her brand. And that's what made her timeless. Diane Keaton didn't just redefine what it meant to be a leading lady. She redefined what it meant to be yourself. She proved that authenticity is magnetic, that audiences don't fall in love with perfection, they fall in love with truth. From a young dreamer in Los Angeles to an Oscar-winning icon, from stage to screen to photography and beyond, Diane Keaton's journey has been one long conversation with the world about the art of being human. Her story reminds us that the most powerful thing you can ever be is yourself, completely, unapologetically, beautifully. She never fit in and she never wanted to. Because Diane Keaton knew something that takes most of us a lifetime to learn. Authenticity isn't found in perfection. It's found in imperfection, in the awkward laugh, the mismatched outfit, the unfiltered thought. She didn't just redefine the role of a woman in film, she redefined what it means to live as art. Her name may have begun as Diane Hall, but the world will forever remember her as Diane Keaton, the artist who made being real the most beautiful act of all. Keanu Reeves' story couldn't have begun more differently. Born in Beirut, Lebanon in 1964, a place far removed from the Hollywood spotlight he would one day inhabit. His mother, Patricia, was an English costume designer, and his father, Samuel, a geologist from Hawaii. His early life was a map drawn in motion. From Lebanon to Australia, from New York to Toronto, Reeves never stayed in one place for long. His parents' marriage fractured early, and by the time he was a young boy, his father was gone from his life. For most children, such instability might have created fear, but for Keanu, it built adaptability, a quiet strength. He learned early how to read a room, how to find peace in unfamiliar spaces. As a child, he was dyslexic. Reading didn't come easily, so instead of words, he learned people. Instead of stories on paper, he studied stories in faces. That's where the actor was born, not in a theater but in the everyday art of observation. Growing up in Toronto, Reeves found solace in two unlikely places, the hockey rink and the stage. He loved hockey, the rhythm, the focus, the way time disappeared when the puck hit the ice. His teammates called him the Wall because of his skill as a goalie, but even then his dreams weren't about trophies, they were about expression. At school, he began acting in small plays, often playing intense, emotional characters. The stage gave him something hockey never could, the freedom to feel. And when he felt, the world paid attention. There was something magnetic about the way he moved, awkward yet graceful, hesitant yet powerful. Even then, Keanu had that quiet contradiction, a man of few words yet full of unspoken emotion. When Reeves arrived in Hollywood in the mid-1980s, he didn't fit the mold. He wasn't the loud, polished kind of actor that agents loved. He didn't network or posture. He was shy, thoughtful, and deeply protective of his privacy. But that very difference made him unforgettable. In films like River's Edge, 1986, and Permanent Record, 1988, he brought a raw vulnerability rarely seen in young male actors. He wasn't afraid of silence. He didn't perform his emotions. He revealed them. Then came Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, 1989, the role that turned him into a cult icon. As the goofy, lovable Ted, audiences saw another side of Keanu, his humor, his innocence, his joy. Hollywood tried to typecast him, the surfer, the slacker, the woe guy, but Keanu quietly refused to be defined. He never chased fame, he chased honesty. By the 1990s, Keanu Reeves had become a paradox, a movie star who didn't act like one. He starred in Point Break, 1991, blending physical intensity with spiritual depth. He embodied the reluctant hero in Speed, 1994, calm in chaos. And then in 1999 came The Matrix. It wasn't just a movie, it was a revolution, and Keanu was at its center. Neo was everything Reeves himself seemed to be, quiet, questioning, searching for truth in a world built on illusion. The role defined an era, but it also revealed something about the man behind it. He wasn't just playing a savior, he was playing a seeker. For all his success, Keanu's life has never been free of sorrow. He's known profound personal loss, the kind that leaves permanent echoes, yet he's never spoken of it in detail, never turned pain into publicity. Instead, he's carried it quietly, turning grief into empathy, loss into perspective. Those who work with him often describe the same thing, a man who listens, who helps, who treats everyone, from co-star to crew member, with the same quiet respect. One film technician once said, "Keanu doesn't talk about kindness, he lives it." Perhaps that's what makes him different. His pain doesn't harden him, it softens him. He quietly funded crew bonuses on the Matrix films, gifts totaling millions of dollars. He's known for giving away large portions of his salary to special effects and costume teams, people he believes are the unsung heroes of filmmaking. He doesn't announce his good deeds, he just does them. In one viral story, he gave his subway seat to a stranger without hesitation. In another, he joined stranded passengers on a road trip after a flight delay, chatting, laughing, sharing music. To him, kindness isn't a grand gesture, it's a way of being. Reeves once said, "I don't want to be part of a world where being kind is a weakness." And in that quiet defiance, he became something rare in Hollywood, not a celebrity but a human being. People often mistake Keanu's calmness for coldness, but it's not detachment, it's depth. He listens more than he speaks, observes more than he reacts. Behind the stoic mask is a river of empathy. His friends describe him as curious, funny, even childlike. On set, he's often seen helping carry equipment, cleaning up after scenes, or simply sitting alone, sipping coffee, lost in thought. It's that gentleness, the refusal to act superior, that draws people to him. He once said in an interview, "I don't have to speak to feel connected. Sometimes silence says everything." Maybe that's why his characters, from Neo to John Wick, resonate so deeply. They're not superheroes in the traditional sense. They're wounded, searching human. By the early 2000s, Reeves had lived a lifetime of extremes, the dizzying heights of success and the quiet valleys of loss. Then fate introduced him to Diane Keaton on the set of Something Else Gotta Give. It was in many ways the perfect meeting of opposites. Diane was pure spontaneity, laughter in motion, an artist of chaos. Keanu was stillness personified, the calm in every storm. Together, they created something special on screen. Their connection wasn't built on romance or spectacle, but on respect. Diane once said that working with Keanu was like acting next to a mirror that reflects kindness. For Reeves, Diane represented something he'd always admired: authenticity. She reminded him that art doesn't need to be heavy to be meaningful, that laughter can heal as powerfully as silence can. He once remarked, "Diane has this presence, it's joy disguised as art." Their brief collaboration became a lasting influence, a reminder to him that being open, being silly, being real are not weaknesses, they are forms of strength. Off-screen, Keanu is a wanderer, both literally and philosophically. He rides his motorcycles through Los Angeles at dusk, not to escape fame but to find peace. He reads philosophy, studies art, and often quotes poets and thinkers in interviews. He has a deep love for literature and music, often comparing filmmaking to jazz. Improvisational, emotional, unpredictable. He once said, "Sometimes I think the truest thing I can say is nothing at all." It's a philosophy that defines his artistry, a belief that truth doesn't need explanation, it simply is. When most actors his age began fading from the spotlight, Keanu found himself at the center of a cultural revival. The John Wick franchise, launched in 2014, transformed him into an action icon once again. But even in the gunfire and vengeance, audiences saw something deeper: grief, loyalty, humanity. John Wick wasn't just a killer, he was a man mourning love, and that emotional truth elevated the genre. Reeves trained relentlessly for the role, performing many of his own stunts. But beyond the action, what made the series resonate was his emotional stillness, that same quiet that had defined him since boyhood. Once again, Keanu had turned silence into power. In 2010, a photo surfaced of Reeves sitting alone on a park bench, eating a sandwich. The internet called it Sad Keanu. Memes spread, jokes followed, but beneath the humor was something unexpected: empathy. People saw themselves in that image: the loneliness, the stillness, the quiet endurance. Reeves never complained, never mocked the meme. When asked about it later, he smiled softly and said, "Do I look sad? I was just eating." That humility, that ability to laugh at himself, became his armor. Keanu didn't fight the myth, he simply lived past it. In an age of overexposure, Keanu Reeves became an icon by doing the opposite: saying less, feeling more, doing quietly. He doesn't preach gratitude, he embodies it. He doesn't perform kindness, he practices it. He doesn't chase relevance, he lives meaningfully. Through heartbreak and healing, through fame and solitude, through every quiet gesture, Keanu has built a legacy defined not by fame but by grace. He's proof that gentleness is not weakness, it's strength refined by compassion. If you strip away the red carpets and the cameras, you're left with something rare: a man who never let the world make him bitter. Every smile, every quiet nod, every unspoken act of generosity, they tell a story of someone who never forgot where he came from. Keanu Reeves reminds us that greatness isn't found in perfection, it's found in humility. He's the embodiment of that quiet truth. You don't need to speak loudly to be heard. You just need to live honestly. Maybe that's the secret of Keanu Reeves, the reason we can't look away. He's not trying to be a hero, he's not trying to be mysterious, he's just being human. And in a world that often confuses noise for meaning, that's the rarest thing of all. So when we see him, sitting quietly, smiling softly, listening instead of speaking, we see something we've all been missing. Not a movie star, not a myth, but a reminder that even in silence, a gentle soul can move the world. In 2003, Nancy Meyer's romantic comedy Something's Gotta Give brought together an unexpected trio: Jack Nicholson, Diane Keaton, and Keanu Reeves. The film, a story about finding love later in life, quickly became a modern classic. But behind the polished Hollywood setting, something truly remarkable was unfolding. Keanu once recalled a day on set: Diane and Jack sitting in a Paris restaurant, trading playful insults with that unmistakable spark. Watching them work, he said, it was magic. For him, it wasn't just acting, it was witnessing two legends reveal the beauty of authenticity. Their banter wasn't scripted, it was real chemistry, pure and alive. It reminded Keanu that both in art and in life, perfection isn't the goal, honesty is. Off-screen, Diane and Keanu shared a quiet understanding. Both were introspective, private, and more comfortable observing the world than being consumed by it. Diane admired Keanu's quiet kindness. Keanu admired her fearless individuality, her refusal to let Hollywood shape who she was. Crew members remember their warmth on set: the long conversations between takes, Diane's teasing attempts to make him laugh. She once joked that his smile could light up the entire Hamptons. And Keanu, years later, admitted that her laughter, spontaneous and unapologetic, stayed with him long after the cameras stopped rolling. When news broke of Diane Keaton's passing on October 11th, the world mourned an icon. But for Keanu Reeves, the loss was deeply personal. "It's hard to speak about her in the past tense," he said softly on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. That pause, that quiet ache said more than words ever could. Their story was never about romance but about reverence, about friendship, about how two souls can change each other simply by being themselves. Diane Keaton taught Hollywood, and Keanu Reeves, that true art isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about showing up, quirks and all, and finding connection in the chaos. Her passing at 79 marked the end of an era, but her light, her humor, her bold sense of self, continues to live on in everyone she inspired. Especially in one man who never saw her as just a star, but as a friend.